Well, hello everyone, and welcome once again to Vlogitas. I'm Ramsey, and in this Bible Truth series, we go through the Word together, chapter and verse. And we're still in the book of Job, nearing the end of Job. Actually, this is where Job is continuing a very long discourse, and we learn a lot of useful things in this one. Um, you know, I think that most people, by the time they get to this point in the book of Job, are like, enough isn't, enough of hearing everybody talk and all these discourses, but you can pull a lot of useful things out of this speech that Job was about to give. And, and the reason he is doing this is because he's kind of, he's established the fact the friends have brought nothing to the table. They have not been able to prove that he's fallen into sin. And so he begins to just, it's kind of like he's just kind of throwing caution to the wind and just begins, talking. And here is where we actually do see that he has quite a bit of knowledge. There is a reason that he was the greatest of the men of the East, and really up until this point, Job has really just been talking out of anguish, and he hasn't really, kind of brought his knowledge to bear, and now he's about to do that. He has a little bit already, but he will do that even more so here. And then he begins a good self-examination, and which is very very profound, actually. Let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll jump in. Father, I thank you for this word. I thank you that all of your word is useful for instruction and reproof, correction, Lord. It's all beneficial for our growth, and some of it can be, all of it can be combed over more than once, and much can be taken from it with each time. Some of it runs deeper than other parts of it, just because that's the way that you set it up to be. And so, Lord, I ask that you would help us to get through this, with patience and discernment as we go through it, and help us to find those things that you desire us to know, and to that business of yours which we are to be about, because it is contained in these pages, Lord. And so I thank you for these things, and in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, so Job had, where we left Job, he talked about the wicked and their end, and we saw that he kind of came full circle, even though he was struggling with the idea that the wicked are never punished, and that the righteous are never rendered justice, or never given their justification. But then we see him kind of come full circle and land on that original belief that, yes, in the process of time, the wicked do come to justice if they don't repent. And so now he begins to talk about, he kind of changes modes here. And so in chapter 28, he says, people know where to mine silver and how to refine gold. They know where to dig iron from the earth and how to smelt copper from rock. They know how to shine light in the darkness and explore the farthest regions of the earth as they search in the dark for ore. They sink a mine shaft into the earth, far from where anyone lives. They descend on ropes, swinging back and forth. Now that's interesting. Apparently there was a great deal of knowledge concerning mining techniques that we don't necessarily think about. But I mean, he's talking about they've gone to such a depth that they are using rope systems and things to get at the ore that's down there. And so what he's talking about here is knowledge of practical things. So he is saying they have a lot of knowledge, practically speaking. He's like, in general, mankind has a lot of knowledge about this. And then he says in verse 5, food is grown on the earth above, but down below the earth is melted as by fire. Here the rocks contain precious lapis lazuli, and the dust contains gold. There are treasures no bird of prey can see, no falcon's eye observe. No wild animal has walked upon these treasures. No lion has ever set his paw there. People know how to tear apart flinty rocks and to overturn the roots of mountains. They cut tunnels in the rocks and uncover precious stones. They dam up the trickling streams and bring to light the hidden treasures. But do people know where to find wisdom? Where can they find understanding? So now he's talking about, wisdom is not a material, physical thing. Obviously, it's not something that can just be found through practical, techniques that are common among mankind. So he says, no one knows where to find it, for it is not found among the living. Verse 14, it is not here, says the ocean, nor is it here, says the sea. It cannot be bought with gold. It cannot be purchased with silver. It's worth more than all the gold of Ophir, greater than precious onyx or lapis lazuli. Wisdom is more valuable than gold and crystal. It cannot be purchased with jewels mounted in fine gold. Coral and jasper are worthless in trying to get it. The price of wisdom is far above rubies. Precious peridot from Ethiopia cannot be exchanged for it. It's worth more than the purest gold. But do people know where to find wisdom? Where can they find understanding? It is hidden from the eyes of all humanity. Even the sharp-eyed birds in the sky cannot discover it. Destruction and death say, we've heard only rumors of where wisdom can be found. God alone understands the way to wisdom. He knows where it can be found, for he looks throughout the whole earth and sees everything under the heavens. He decided how hard the wind should blow and how much rain should fall. He made the laws for the rain and laid out a path for the lightning. Then he saw wisdom and evaluated it. He set it in place and examined it thoroughly. And this is what he says to all humanity. The fear of the Lord is true wisdom. To forsake evil is real understanding. See, because what's this whole thing been about? This whole thing has been about, there was something that took place in the heavenly realm where Satan challenged God. God accepted the challenge and used Job to prove his point. And Job and his friends are completely in the dark about that. They have no idea. And so Job's friends accuse him of being evil, and that is why this has come upon you, Job. And so what Job is doing is he is zooming way out, and he is talking about the root of what they keep saying. And so he's like, the fear of the Lord's true wisdom. To forsake evil is real understanding. And so God had said in the beginning, he said, Job is a man who fears God and shuns evil. And so Job understood this, but not only did he understand this, he lived it. He put it into practice and he walked it out. He feared God and he shunned evil. And so he understood, and what he's saying is, he said, God says this to all humanity. In other words, Job is even though Job understood this, Job is not saying, he is saying, this is not beyond us. God revealed to all of us that the fear of the Lord is true wisdom, and to forsake evil is true understanding. So he is saying that even though people have all this practical knowledge about how material things in the world work and the value of material things, he's like, wisdom is elusive. You can't find it. But he's like, the only way to find it is to understand what God said about it, is to fear the Lord and shun evil. That's wisdom. And so they've talked about this for all these chapters about this is what happens to the wicked, this is what happens to the righteous. And Job is saying, in order to be right with God, you have to fear God and shun evil. That's true wisdom. And so he continues in chapter 29. Job continued speaking, I long for the years gone by, when God took care of me, when he lit up the way before me, and I walked safely through the darkness. So, what does the word say, in Psalm, is it Psalm 23, where, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The world, he's addressing the world's fallen state. Even though the world is a dark place, he's like, God lit up my path. I feared God, I shunned evil, I did what he said, and he lit my path for me. I had light in darkness. He said, God took care of me. Verse 4, when I was in my prime, God's friendship was felt in my home. The Almighty was still with me, and my children were around me. My steps were awash in cream, and the rocks gushed olive oil for me. Those were the days when I went to the city gate and took my place among the honored leaders. The young stepped aside when they saw me, and even the aged rose in respect at my coming. The princes stood in silence and put their hands over their mouths. The highest officials of the city stood quietly, holding their tongues in respect. Why? Because he understood wisdom. Because he had God's favor upon him, because he feared the Lord and shunned evil. And so God's favor was seen upon him. And so because he had favor with God, that favor then extended to the people around him because they saw God had blessed him. And we saw the same thing happen with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob. We saw the same thing happen with those covenant people, and as long as they walked in God's ways. And so he says here in verse 11, all who heard me praised me, all who saw me spoke well of me, for I assisted the poor. This is why. It's God's favor is upon him, but why is God's favor upon him? This is why. He explains. Verse 12, for I assisted the poor in their need, and the orphans who required help. I helped those without hope, and they blessed me. And I caused the widows' hearts to sing for joy. Why? Because the widows, again, they were without that sole breadwinner in their home to help them, and Job extended help to them. And so it made their hearts sing with joy. That's what he means when he says this. Verse 14, everything I did was honest. Righteousness covered me like a robe, and I wore justice like a turban. I served as eyes for the blind and feet for the lame. I was a father to the poor and assisted strangers who needed help. I broke the jaws of godless oppressors and plucked their victims from their teeth. So he helped people who were being oppressed. So his friend just a couple of chapters back accused him of doing all of these evil things, and he at the time didn't say anything about it, and he talked a little bit longer, and now he is saying, this is what I did. This is what I did. And this bears witness with what God said about Job in chapter 1. And so he says in verse 18, I thought, surely I will die surrounded by my family after a long good life. For I am like a tree whose roots reach the water, whose branches are refreshed with the dew. New honors are constantly bestowed on me, and my strength is continually renewed. So this is the way he's talking about. This is the way it felt. It was like it would never end. You know, he lived what we would call a charmed life, although it wasn't because it was handed to him on a silver platter. It was because of his conduct. It was because of the way that he treated people. He knew how to love justice and mercy. He knew how to be kind to those who needed help, and he knew how to stand in the gap for those who needed a defender. And so verse 21, everyone listened to my advice. They were silent as they waited for me to speak, and after I spoke, they had nothing to add, for my counsel satisfied them. They longed for me to speak as people long for rain. They drank my words like a refreshing spring rain. When they were discouraged, I smiled at them. My look of approval was precious to them. Like a chief, I told them what to do. I lived like a king among his troops, and comforted those who mourned. And remember, he said earlier, when his friends kept telling him these terrible things, he said, if you were in my place, I would be comforting to you. You know, and I think he would have. You know, and yeah, it's true, he's bearing witness of himself. But like I said, God had said in chapter 1 that Job, he's you know, depending on the translation you read, he said he's the finest man on the earth. You know, and that's a very high level of praise from God. You know, and so I really think that all these things he's saying about himself are absolutely true. And so then chapter 30 he says, but now I am mocked by people younger than I, by young men whose fathers are not worthy to run with my sheepdogs. A lot of good they are to me, those worn-out wretches. They are gaunt from poverty and hunger. They claw the dry ground in desolate wastelands. They pluck wild greens from among the bushes, and eat from the roots of broom trees. They are driven from human society, and people shout at them as if they were thieves. So now they live in frightening ravines, in caves and among the rocks. They sound like animals howling among the bushes, huddled together beneath the nettles. They are nameless fools, outcasts from society. Why? Because they had been oppressors. And Job is saying that, you know, because of their conduct, because of what they were doing to orphans and widows, he made them leave. You know, and so he's saying, but now it's like he's like, now I feel like I'm in their position, you know. See verse 9, and now they mock me with vulgar songs. They taunt me. They despise me and won't come near me except to spit in my face. For God has cut my bowstring. He has humbled me. So they have thrown off all restraint. So again, you know, a bow represents covenant. And so he's like, that string that keeps that bow taut has been cut, and he doesn't realize it. And so, I mean, he probably feels like God has turned his back on him, although that's not what's happened, but that's what it feels like. And so, verse 12, he says, "These outcasts oppose me to my face. They send me sprawling and lay traps in my path. They block my road and do everything they can to destroy me. They know I have no one to help me. They come at me from all directions. They jump on me when I am down. I live in terror now. My honor has blown away in the wind, and my prosperity has vanished like a cloud." Yeah, I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen, in real time, in just with what have happened with people around me, where it's like the people who seem like they're on top of the world, they have all this success and they have all this favor, and while things are going their way, they don't really have anyone to oppose them. But then as soon as it looks like they are kind of down on their luck, or they've hit a bad turn, it's like people are like, "Aha! We knew that you weren't as good as you thought you were." And it's kind of funny how people do this. And what Job is describing um, happened to King David. I mean, when David, you remember we went through where uh, David's son rebelled against him, and as he was going, he found out who his real friends were, and there were people that were close to him that were then reviling him and turning against him, and we saw others who looked like they were willing to turn against him, but they kind of wanted to bide their time and see how things would go for him, and so you're going to find the whole gambit, and um, Job is saying, well, now that I'm um, in this position, and they see that there's no one to help me, now they've turned on me. And people will do that. People are fickle. It reminds me of um, in the Gospel of John in chapter 2 and 3, Jesus was performing these miracles, and it says the people believed in him as a result of the miracles they saw him perform, but he did not commit himself to them because he knew what was in man. He knew what mankind was really like. In other words, he wasn't going to um, sort of invest in all this adulation and praise that he was receiving from these people, because he's like, I'm not going to um, let them accept me on their terms. If they want to accept me, they're going to have to come after me and bear their cross and follow me. In other words, he did not um, he didn't buy into the popularity, and it's a good thing, because people will turn on us if we hit like sort of this low uh, this low bounce, like like Job is on here. And so verse 16, "And now my life seeps away, depression haunts my days. At night my bones are filled with pain, which gnaws at me relentlessly. With a strong hand God grabs my shirt. He grips me by the collar of my coat. He has thrown me into the mud. I'm nothing more than dust and ashes. I cry to you, O God, but you don't answer. I stand before you, but you don't even look. You have become cruel toward me. You use your power to persecute me. You throw me into the whirlwind and destroy me in the storm. And I know you are sending me to my death, the destination of all who live." And so he's wrong about all these things. God has not done this. In fact, God answers him from a whirlwind and a storm. And it's funny because it's almost like God is um, God is responding in kind to what Job has said here wrongfully, although God, and it's almost like God is doing it in that way simply to show him you were wrong. It's a visual example that Job is wrong, because God speaks to him out of a storm and a whirlwind, and he does not end Job's life. And so it's funny how God, will use an object lesson like a storm, or a whirlwind in this case, and but Job is also, he's also talked about, again, he's talked about how the wicked undergo a penalty in the process of time, but yet he is not, it's ironic that he is not recognizing that justification also comes in the process of time, and restoration also comes in the process of time. He cannot see past his pain, and that's a problem, because it makes him judge matters um, uh, not completely accurately. I mean, he's accurate about some things, but not about this. So, verse 24, surely no one would turn against the needy when they cry for help in their trouble. Did I not weep for those in trouble? Was I not deeply grieved for the needy? So I looked for good, but evil came instead. I waited for the light, but darkness fell. My heart is troubled and restless. Days of suffering torment me. I walk in gloom without sunlight. I stand in the public square and cry for help. Instead, I am considered a brother to jackals and a companion to owls. My skin is turned dark, and my bones burn with fever. My heart plays sad music, and my flute accompanies those who weep. How am I on time? I think that we're just about done. Really? Only 20? And so actually, I guess it's because we're moving through these things quickly. Probably because we have gone through these things in great detail. And so I'm trying to decide if we should do one more chapter here. I don't want to leave us on this, dark note. But maybe we should. Let's see. Yeah, let's go ahead and end it here. Because I think that, even though we made some good time, maybe it's good that we have a short one here with Job. So let's go ahead and pray, and we'll pick up in the next episode. So, Father, I thank you that we're about to see everything come full circle here for Job. That you do have his interests at heart, just like you have our interests at heart, Father. And that yes, even though we may reap in tears, or sow in tears, we will reap in joy. Sorrow lasts for the night, but joy comes in the morning. This is a short time for Job, and we've really learned a lot in it. And I thank you for it, Lord, that you allowed us to see into his experience and see how to steel our will in favor of your words that you have spoken. And I thank you for these things. I ask that you bless all those who tune in here with me. And in Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Well, bless you guys, and we will see you again.